My name is Tom Cole. I'm a retired Master Sergeant E8 of United States Marines. I served 23 years in the United States Marine Corps from July of 1969 to July of 1992.
What made you decide to enlist, or were you drafted?
Well, my dad had been in the Marine Corps in World War II. He saw action on many of the islands, and yeah, I think the last one he was in with Peleliu. And, he never talked a lot about it, but, I always kind of wanted to be in the Marines. I always thought that was, sort of the pinnacle of what you could do in life, And so I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 18. And, I had a scholarship for music from high school, but I didn't take it. I wanted to be in the Marines.
What was your role in Vietnam, and what did a typical day look like for you?
In Vietnam, I was an aviation ordnanceman. I was a buck sergeant, E5. And we were loading bombs, rockets, missiles, guns, on A4 aircraft. A typical day, well, it wasn't really a typical day. You just did a lot of work on the flight line. Usually we had on our boots and our trowel, no shirts, and we were out loading bombs all day long. Usually you worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, unless you had something going on. Then it was 18 hours a day. And of course we were young and dumb, and it was just what you did. So 12 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. You got 1 day off a month. And usually on that day you'd take that day off, and if they had a show coming, you'd go hold a table for a show, and everybody'd sit there and have a couple of drinks. But other than that, it was pretty busy, pretty busy.
What was it like arriving in Vietnam for the first time?
Well, I remember I got to Iwakuni, Japan, and spent 8 days up there checking in, and then I went to the Philippines overnight, and then the next day I flew in. It was morning when we flew into Vietnam, and we got to Bien Hoa Air Base, Republic of Vietnam, and I looked up and there was the sign, Bien Hoa Air Base, Republic of Vietnam. I'd been assigned to VMA 311, the squadron, and when I checked in there, they said, no, you're going to 211. They need ordnance guys. So I went over there, and yeah, it was just work from day one, so.
Can you share a moment that has stuck with you the most from your time there?
Well, I think one of the funniest stories, we had a rocket attack that came in, and we'd get anywhere from 300 to 400 rockets at a time. I mean, it was pretty intense, and we'd have sometimes mortars coming in on top of that. And I remember one particular attack, we had 3 barrages, and they did the first barrage, and the only place we didn't have bunkers to go to, and so we'd all get down into this shower area that had a 3-foot concrete wall around it. So we'd all lay on the floor of this concrete shower, and we're smoking cigarettes and listening to everything blow up. Well, we went outside after the first barrage, and we're watching things blow up, and it looks just like on TV, the big tower and the big red flames and all this stuff. And, it was like we were kind of laughing about it, but then the second barrage hit, started blowing up more stuff, and we're back in the shower. And then we came out after the third barrage, and I remember I had my flak jacket on, no boots, a flak jacket, a helmet, my M16, 3 clips of 30, and I looked up, and here's a buddy of mine standing there with his arms on his hips and his back to me. And he had on a flak jacket, a helmet, a pair of shower shoes, and that was it. And that picture kind of seared itself in my brain. And I just kept laughing and saying, don't you think you ought to put that flak jacket a little lower, Jose? So it was pretty funny.
How did the war change you as a person?
Well, I don't think anybody understands what they're getting into when they go to a war. I mean, you've seen movies and stuff like this. Well, that doesn't, cut it. In a movie, you see the war in the movie. and you're experiencing, depending on the surround sound system, how the sound impacts you, and you can feel things and stuff like this. But there's the smell and the taste, and it's just totally different. And you come home, you're a different person. I've got a picture of when I made Sergeant in Beaufort, and here's this young, smiling young man of 21. And then there's a picture next to it when I came out of Vietnam to get a new ID card, and there's this old man. I looked like 35 years old, and I was only 22, and it physically changes you, but mentally it changes a lot of the outlook you have on the world.
What was coming home like? How did people treat you?
My friends were fine. There was a volleyball game we were doing in a backfired car, the story of a backfired car, and I hit the deck. And later when we went for pizza and beer, they were like, "What the hell happened over there?" And I said, "You wouldn't understand." And, they really wouldn't. So I didn't really share a lot with them. I just said it was a war. We were shot at, that's it. That's all you need to know, And I remember I was in San Diego airport, and some 4 little hippie people came up, and 2 guys, 2 girls, and one of the guys spit on me. They were calling me baby killer and all that. And one of the guys spit on me, and it hit my green uniform right above my ribbons. And I remember taking out a hanky and wiping that off while they're yelling at me. I put the hanky away, and I hit him so hard I broke his jaw. He went out. And then the cops came. And then I remember one cop grabbed my arm and backed me up and said, "Go that way. Don't run. Walk, but leave fast." And so I left. And when I turned around about 10 yards later, they had those 4 people on the ground and were cuffing them. So I felt good about that. But yeah, you had a lot of people that, instead of going to their senators and complaining and their representatives in Congress, they picked on us because we were available. And I thought, obviously, they don't understand. They don't understand how everything works. And we didn't start this war. We're just the people that have to go prosecute it. So just what it was.
How did you adjust to civilian life after the war?
Well, I really, as I was in 23 years, I really didn't have to adjust to civilian life until years later. And I thought I never had PTSD, and found out later, yeah, I had all the signs of PTSD throughout my career. Just you're in the Corps, you really don't notice it, because most of the people around you are acting the same way. They had PTSD. When I retired from the Marine Corps, I had gotten an associate and bachelor's degree and went in 20-year career in corporate America. And then I went to Afghanistan for 2 years as a contractor on the Kabul Embassy Security Forces years later, and when I was 63 through 65 years old. And when I came back from Afghanistan, that PTSD all the way from Vietnam up to then hit me like a frickin' truck, and it took me 6 months of just basically kind of meditating and thinking to kind of wrap my head around PTSD and, my whole life experiences up to that point. So it was a little challenging for that period of time, but I got through it, and things were great since then. So.
Do you keep in touch with anyone you served with?
Yeah, matter of fact, there's just a few, many of my friends have passed along, I'm 74, but many of them have died in the interim. But there's some of them that are still alive. And also I was at Camp Pendleton. I was running the ordnance shop in HMA 169 Cobras, and then later 369 also. And a lot of my Cobra boys, when we did the Iran rescue attempt, a lot of them got the Marine Corps Expeditionary Medal. We all did, that were there. And a lot of them are still, in contact with me. I was their gunny, and they were my troops, but they're still in contact with me quite a bit. But I've only got about, I'd say, literally 4 or 5 guys, a handful, that from the Vietnam era that we're still in contact, so.
Looking back, what would you want future generations to learn from your experience?
Well, one, you're in a great country, and if your country has to go to war, you should be there to support it. And if you're not going to support it by going in the service, then be patient with the people and pleased and proud of the people who are serving in your stead. That's the first few things. And, if you don't go to a war, you won't understand it, and you see some of these guys that, like in, I think it was Band of Brothers, where they have the actual guys in there that had served in World War II, and when they get a little bit too close to the war, they'll tear up because they're reliving those experiences. And remember that everybody that's been to that kind of a thing will experience it again if they get too close to it. So you don't ask them stupid things like, have you killed somebody? Have you, what was it like in the war? You would never be able to understand or comprehend their experiences unless you'd been through it. Movies aren't going to help you only to a point. And like I said, there's the physical feelings, the smell, the taste, the sound, everything. It's just a whole package that you really can't understand, but you can try to. And you have to be patient with people that have gone through things like that.